The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
A very scary experience.
You know, God is a solution. God, the 12 step.
I like where he's going here.
Helps the community grow, helps us grow. Monty has done a phenomenal job.
Lack of open-mindedness.
And you're talking about taking people through a spiritual process and getting them into recovery.
Thanks, Monty, and thanks for all your support.
We need spirituality to make this thing work long term.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
And now, broadcasting on location somewhere in the vast expanse of the Pacific Northwest, it's the over-opinionated 12-stepologist, the Monty Man.
Yep. That's right. Welcome aboard, everyone, to a very special edition of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. I am your host of the Monty Man, and you've tuned into us either on, well, probably on any one of your favorite platforms as far as podcasting. We're on all of them now. And also at take12radio.com on your internet dial. Dave Fleming, certified alcohol and drug counselor, level 2, is in the house. Hey, Dave.
Hey,
What's
Monty.
happening? What's happening?
Certifiable?
Yeah, you are. And by the way, the title for this show is Easy Does It, because there, right there next to Dave.
And how does he do it?
Is our friend Ezekiel Hill. Hey, Easy.
Well, hello.
Affectionately known as Easy. How long have people been calling you that?
My mom gave me that nickname.
Did she?
When I was in football in second grade.
Yeah.
Eight
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah, and it's stuck.
We also call him Summertime Santa.
Summertime Santa.
Summertime
That's right.
Santa.
That's right. So the reason we're calling it Easy Does It is because today on the show, on this very special podcast, which we usually do Mondays, but we're doing this Saturday show because this is when Easy could be here. And I thought, you know what? We don't want to miss this story. Folks, I think you're going to really enjoy this. So we called it Easy Does It because Easy has done it and continues to do it. Well, we're going to talk about what it is here in just a few minutes. But we like to have a little fun on the show. So I think it's time for this. Dum-da-dum-da-dum.
And now.
And now.
It's the Quiz of the Week.
That's right. This is the part of the show where we try to stump our guest, in this case, Ezekiel. We'll do a little, because he is a graduate of the Adult and Teen Challenge program, we'll do some Teen Challenge trivia. Now, if you get all of these right, the only thing you get is bragging rights. That's it. Actually, what we will give you, if you turn around right behind you, Easy, we'll give you a Take 12 Recovery Radio Monty Man mug.
Sweet.
How's that sound?
That sounds awesome.
Right here, hold it up for everybody to see. There, Dave. There it is. There's the Monty Man on one side and Take 12 Recovery Radio on the other.
And actually, you can have one of these fine specimens.
You can. If you go to take12radio.com and go down to the bottom of the page where it says Get Our Mug, you click on there and you'll have a heck of a deal. There you go. So, Easy. Yes. Are you ready for a little
Sure am,
Teen
Monty.
Challenge
Bring
trivia?
it on.
All right. So, number one, by the way, if you get it wrong, you get the fluff machine. If you get it right, you got the Denver cowbell.
All right.
All right. Here we go. Question number one. You get two and a bonus. According to Teen Challenge USA, the biggest difference between adult and Teen Challenge and traditional residential recovery centers is known as a specific factor. What is this factor? Here are your choices. Is it the faith factor, the Jesus factor, or the God factor? What do you think, Easy?
That sounds like the same answer. Let's go with the God factor.
What do you think, Dave?
What are my choices again?
The faith factor, the Jesus factor, or the God factor?
And this is Teen Challenge USA.
Yep. All right. Time's up. Oh, Dave got it right. It is the Jesus factor.
Oh,
sorry, Easy. Our program focuses on the power of the Holy Spirit and God's Word to give our students a guiding light. We encourage our students to form a stronger connection to their faith. This makes a huge difference in their recovery. We provide a faith-based environment to encourage healing and a new life in Christ. We instill biblical teachings into our daily routines. We give our students the tools they need to empower themselves through God, and we refer to this as the Jesus factor. That's according to Teen Challenge USA. All right, here's number 2. Teen Challenge started its first residential program in December of 1960 in a house in Brooklyn, New York, in 1973. 13 years after the ministry began, Teen Challenge established national headquarters. Pastor David Wilkerson was the founding father of the Teen Challenge program. Who played Pastor Wilkerson in the 1970 movie The Cross and the Switchblade? And here are your choices. Was it Billy Graham? Was it missionary Smith Wigglesworth? Or was it Pat Boone?
Pat Boone.
Dave, you say Pat Boone too?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you guys are correct. It was Pat Boone in his white patent leather shoes. Very good. All right, and here's your bonus. Oh, wait a minute. I have to give you the information about Pat Boone. Starring Pat Boone and David Wilkerson and Eric Estrada as Nikki Cruz, the teen gang member whose life was transformed by Wilkerson's ministry. The film was based on a nonfiction book of the same name, The Cross and the Switchblade. Okay, here's question number 3, trivia question number 3. According to the education coordinator at the Adult and Teen Challenge Center you graduated from, Easy, what is the ultimate reason God directs men to this recovery ministry? Is it A?
To be of maximum service to God, to God and the people He puts in our life.
He didn't even have to have the other choices. That is correct. The other choices were to change the consequences that has been a result of drinking and using, or B, to get sober and stay sober, or C, which was the correct answer, to become of maximum service to God and the people He puts in your life. Good job, my brother. Good job. Yay! There you go. And that does it for Take 12 Trivia. We'll be right back right after this with our friend Ezekiel Hill. And this episode, Easy Does It. Don't go away. Check this out.
When I got back from Iraq, I just couldn't shake the guilt that I came home and 34 other men did not. There isn't a drink or a drug out there that can touch that kind of pain. Believe me, I tried. But when I heard a Teen Challenge story on the radio, I finally decided to get help. This program did for me what nothing else seemed to be able to do. It gave me hope. Now I can finally move on and live my life in a way that honors those who lost theirs.
To locate a Teen Challenge Center near you, or for more information, visit teenchallengeusa.com.
Hey, check it out. The best in recovery talk and positive music radio is now available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and Podomatic. Simply visit any of these platforms and search for Take 12 Recovery Radio. Listen and download hundreds of our shows for fun and for free. Also available at take12radio.com.
Without the booze, I've been living, that's a fact. without the booze. I've been making my way back without the booze. I've been learning day by day to let it go and stay out of my own way.
Well, welcome back to the show. That's Mr. Tony Morosi and his recovery band, Selfish Steam, without the booze. Speaking of which, our guest on the show for this very special broadcast is Mr. Ezekiel Hill, who has been living without the booze and other mind-altering substances for some time now. And so what we like to do when we have a special guest on sharing his story of experience, strength, and hope is to kind of divide it up into what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. So we're actually going to play a song by Richie Supa after we finish the first segment of what it was like. So, Easy, the reason we're talking about Teen Challenge today on this show and kind of helping to promote that program is because you yourself completed the 12-month program and then went on to complete the aftercare, and which was a total of 16 months. And you are a graduate of the Adult and Teen Challenge program, true?
True.
Yeah. But before you did all that, and before you looked as handsome and debonair and healthy and sparkling-eyed as you do now, you weren't doing too well.
No.
What was going on?
Oh, a whole lot. I mean, I started drinking and smoking pot when I was in junior high, actually. It started with cigarettes and weed, and then a couple years later, I got drunk for the first time when I was 15. Like, I had tried alcohol before, but I never got drunk. And let me tell you, I was an alcoholic from my very first drunk. After the very first, because I started to get drunk, and then I just wanted to keep drinking because I liked the effect. So I was an alcoholic from the first time I got drunk.
So you were drinking alcoholically from the very first sip. Did you know that though, or I mean, you have a clue about that? Or
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Just looking back on it now, like that's what was happening.
You bet.
You know, but when I dropped out of high school. You know, I was drinking and smoking pot, and I just cared more about that than anything else. So I dropped out of high school and got my GED when I was 18. I got my GED. I dropped out when I was at the end of my sophomore year, but I got my GED when I was at the beginning of what would have been my senior year.
Right.
And I ended up being introduced to heroin when I was 19 years old.
So how did that happen?
I actually was just at a friend's house. I had known him and his two brothers for like 6 years leading up to that. And I had walked outside to smoke a cigarette, and I heard one of them, the guy friend that I was closest with, the brother that I was closest with, him and another friend of ours in their woodshed. And I just thought, oh, I just went to go investigate, see what they're doing. And I walked around the corner, and they're holding a spoon and a lighter, and I didn't know exactly what they were doing, but they both looked like, bug-eyed, like, oh crap, we just got caught.
Oh, okay.
And
so that was not their intention for you to see that.
No, it was not their intention for me to see that. And so I told them that I wanted to try, and they asked me if I had ever done it before, which I hadn't, but I fabricated this story about finding some in my dad's desk drawer and then smoking it, I
bet Dad appreciated that.
Yeah, he didn't know about that.
Oh, well,
he does now.
Well, he does now.
Yeah.
Or he will.
Yeah, he will when he hears this.
5:30.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But
were you intoxicated at the time?
I was stoned, I'm sure.
Okay.
I pretty much always was.
Sure.
At that time of my life.
Yeah.
You
were a pothead for the most part up till then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would drink whenever I could.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to buy it yet, so it wasn't readily available. But the very first time I used heroin, that night, I used a needle. I didn't I didn't use pills before that, and I didn't smoke it. The very first time I went straight to the vein.
Wow.
And then that started a 4-year addiction, heroin addiction for me. You know,
what was it the promised land for you from the first experience? I mean, when you felt the euphoria and the whole 9 yards, you were like,
I was
this
like,
is for me.
This is the bee's knees. You know, let's do that again.
Right.
You know, that was my mindset, and so I just did I did everything I could to just do that, and I never had any desire to get a job or mature or grow up at all. You know, during that time of my life, you know, and then drugs was introduced, and then I didn't even have a thought of doing those things. I was a leech.
So lots of folks have there's a myriad of reasons why people use mind altering substances, right?
Right.
Some people are just curious, right? Some people there's a peer pressure involved, maybe. Other people, there's trauma and they discover a way to medicate and, hide behind that and not feel and that kind of. Why did you start even smoking pot? I mean, was there something going on, or was it just, I'm just a young guy and I'm going to try this out? I mean,
it was a mix of things. Looking back now, I know I can pinpoint pretty much what it was. It was, I had really low self-esteem issues. I had moved from Southern California up to Salem, Oregon in junior high when, right before I started smoking pot. It was like 6 months before that I had moved, and I got more overweight than I already was from moving to California. I got a lot more overweight really quickly, and that didn't help my self-esteem at all.
Sure.
And then the other side was that I was just curious, and so it was like I didn't have to feel this way anymore, and that's the curiosity was more like in the moment, whereas looking back, there was also like these things were helping mask the way I was feeling about myself.
So I want to address something here, and I think kind of get Dave's take on this too. A lot of people may be listening right now and saying to themselves, well, I mean, I understand if you've had a traumatic experience and it's just horrible and why you would want to maybe mask how you feel. But dealing with being overweight and just growing up, I mean, how can that be traumatic? And, I don't get it. Well, the deal of it is we know that trauma is very subjective. I mean, your trauma may be that you were never hugged. Mine may be that I was hugged too much. We can't really, say, well, that wasn't a legitimate traumatic thing because we're not that other person. Right, Dave?
Right. And, trauma is an interesting thing because, sometimes even as short or as long as some of us are in recovery.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have traumatic stuff that happens to us that we don't want to talk about or we don't want to share. And, it makes it difficult to try to explain it to people.
It does.
I always try to look at it like, I just try to share that, there's, and I don't even really talk about this either, but I've had traumatic experiences in my life and I don't talk about them, because I don't really need to. Right. As they say, stuff happens.
It is what it is.
And then you allow yourself to do other things that kind of lead you down this road. And, like we've talked, I've talked about, some of my stuff. I've kind of went down that dark side and lived there for a while.
Right.
The self-medication, right? You learn through experimentation or peer pressure, I think I was 12 when I didn't know because I didn't have the information about being an addict. But by the time I was in high school, I'm the last man standing after doing whiskey and beer bongs on the golf course.
Yeah.
That should have told me something, right?
Sure.
And I don't know if you've had any of those experiences, but and there's stuff that happens along the way that they kind of stack on each other. Trauma kind of stacks on each other, but it could just be little things like, maybe you had some you're bullied or had some verbal abuse, maybe parents or foster parents or whatever it is, feel like you're not doing good enough. All these little things that come from other people stack on top of each other.
Sure.
And it ends up kind of being a little like PTSD. It doesn't have to have this one.
Doesn't have to be one
traumatic,
event.
like
right.
You're in a war or an explosion or a car crash or something.
And the thing is too, it wasn't like you had low self-esteem and you automatically just said, "Oh, there's heroin. Let's do heroin." You were drinking, right? Some would consider the low end of the scale of beginning substance abuse. Maybe, my first drink was, somebody had a Coors Light, or they didn't even have light back then. Coors was the light, right? And it was like somebody had one. I thought, well, that's interesting because I had tasted whiskey prior to that because of weight issues and being made fun of and all that kind of thing.
And peer pressure. What usually happens. It's like, I want to be just like.
And I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right? And then yours, it kind of led up to that. You were getting stoned, right? So, you're using heroin. You've arrived, right? And you keep using it. What is going on? Did this take you down a road of destruction, or was it working for a while?
No, it wasn't working for a while. I mean, if you're going to do heroin, there's only one road that you're on, whether you realize it or not. You're on the road to destruction. I mean,
right.
So very quickly, I got kicked out of my parents' house. I had a good friend, their family took me in, even gave me my own bedroom and let me live with them for a year. And all I did was steal from them and use them, and was extremely ungrateful to them and my family. They ended up kicking me out, so this was like 2 years into my using. And then I had a girlfriend, and she actually didn't use before she met me, but after she became my girlfriend, she sure did,
Yeah.
Then we ended up buying a car, and so I was going to take off to California and just go backpacking down the road and just go hitchhiking, because I was done. I was like, I'm getting out of this town. It's got to be the town that's the problem, right?
Right.
And she decides she wanted to go with me, so she actually packed up. We packed up 2 backpacks, like hikers' backpacks, and started off down the road. And she just left her apartment, stuff in there and everything, and she just took off, and went with me. And we ended up coming back to Oregon just a few weeks later, and bought a car and lived out of a car for like a year, and then the car broke down, and then we lived on the streets for a few months, and I was able to get a job while I was homeless. I got a pizza job and saved up enough to move into really crummy apartment, in downtown Salem, right in Felony Flats, actually.
Yeah. Oh, how convenient.
Yeah,
what?
right? How
There's
convenient.
actually a place called Felony Flats?
Yeah, in Salem, there's a part of town that is referred to as Felony Flats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not
we have
real, it's just slang.
We have that in Albany, too. It's just a 1-block radius around one of the 7-Elevens.
Yeah, it's like in LA, Skid Row,
Sure.
It's the same idea.
Ghetto.
It's the ghetto. Every town has one.
Yeah.
So that, that I ended up getting an apartment, and then I paid for a month's rent, and we stayed there. And I'd spent all my rent money on dope, So
this whole time you're slamming heroin,
the whole
living
time.
with this gal,
Whole time.
and you're on the streets or in the car, and you're cooking pizzas.
Yeah. Well, I was
Exciting
cooking
times.
pizzas I did that for like 6 months. I was working in the mall at Sbarro. Of all the pizza places, I was working in the mall, where actually people had to see me all the time, which was crazy to me. I don't know how I actually pulled that off, but I did.
Here's that guy tossing pizza dough and falling asleep in the middle of the toss, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
Do that again, Dave. You can't see it, those that aren't watching on YouTube, but Dave was flipping pizza. Flip the pizza, Dave. Flip the pizza. There you go.
It's actually like this, and then
Right, you do that.
You pull it and stretch with your knuckles, and then you can do a toss. The toss is more for show, actually.
Sure, it's not that difficult to spin it and toss it.
No, not at all.
Once you know how to do it.
Yeah, I picked it up in a couple of days.
I'm hungry.
Are you?
Let me whip you up a pie real quick.
So easy.
That's my other addiction.
So obviously things weren't getting better. What happened next?
I ended up moving down to California. I was like, because I had this. Yeah, well, I had it in my head. This idea in my head that it had to be the town. I just had to get away from my connections and the bad people and influences in my life. So I broke up with my girlfriend. And it wasn't even formal. I just kind of was like,
left.
By the way, I'm moving to California. And she's like, what? And I was like, yep, see ya.
Wow.
Like,
nice guy.
Yeah, I didn't. There was no warning, no nothing.
Right.
In fact, actually, I knew I was going to break up with her, and I was like, well, I still want her company around up until I leave. So I'm not going to say anything till the moment I'm leaving.
Sounded like you wanted something other than company.
Right, but I'm not going to,
right.
We all know what I'm talking about.
Sure. Because addiction is multifaceted, and
yeah, absolutely.
So she was part of your addiction.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you hers. So did you move back down to California?
I did. I moved in with my grandpa and my aunt and uncle and two cousins that they all live in the same house in West Covina, California, LA County. And I moved down there, and I had stopped using heroin, but I was still drinking, and smoking pot.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I was like, well, at least I'm not doing dope, like,
oh, yeah.
Which is, it's just the whole trading
Typical.
Addiction thing.
Sure.
But my grandpa gave me a couple of months to get a job, or I have to,
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went down to the mall, down to the same pizza place, Sbarro, and was like, hey, I just moved here from Oregon. I already am trained. We hire me. Can I? And they did. It obviously wasn't like that. I get put in an application and had an interview and stuff. But
sure.
I mean, they hired me right away, and I was actually one of the guy's favorite employees. Which was very strange because I was an alcoholic, but I've always had like a good work ethic. Like if I was at work, I was going to do my job and I'm going to be focused and do a good job at my job. But as soon as I clock out, man, I'm gone. Do not call me because I'm not coming in.
Well, and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous refers to that. That we're very talented. We're very sensitive people. We're very good at our jobs, and our work ethic is very good. But when it comes to, and in that case, alcohol, right? When it comes to alcohol, something's wrong. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you have all these other attributes, but you've got this substance that is interfering with your life.
Yeah.
Did you keep your job or did you get fired?
I ended up getting fired. It took almost 2 years before that happened. But, but I ended up getting fired. Yeah. And then I ended up having to move out of my grandpa's house. And it's same thing. I ended up meeting a friend in California that his family really liked me. And so when I got kicked out, they took me in and I stayed with them for like 6 months, and I ended up having to leave there too, because I got this other pizza job and then I ended up getting fired from that. And then I just like really started drinking all the time instead of just in between work, it was like just not good. And so I got kicked out there. I ended up living on the streets in Southern California in the Azusa Canyons. I was living homeless, and there's a whole homeless community in the Azusa Canyons. I met this guy, Vietnam vet, Stony Burke, and he claimed he had Agent Orange, been infected with it during the war, and that's when I started slamming meth. I had never done that before.
But he introduced you to that?
Yeah, he introduced me to that. This guy told me that he used this was his medication for the Agent Orange.
Gotcha.
Right, and and so that's I started doing that, and man, I lost my mind. I mean, there was like a whole month there that I was spun out and drinking and just my goodness. I mean, it's a blur, but it's also not a blur because I was spun out because like it's weird. It was just just a tornado of self-destruction.
So
that happened.
so did your behaviors become that of someone that you didn't recognize?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's night and day with me. When I'm intoxicated under the influence, I am a different person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I'm sober, even when I've been sober just a month, you know, I'm a completely different person. People are able to pick up on that very quickly.
Did you drop a lot of weight?
When I was using,
Yeah.
I got really sucked up. When I stopped using the last time, I was like 156 pounds.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. So physically, this was taking its toll. Mentally, it was taking its toll. Psychosis was happening, right? I mean, you know, we refer to that as spun out. I mean, we're tweaked, we're spun, we're, you know, reality.
Flailer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you hallucinating? Were you talking to people who weren't there? Did you have amphetamine psychosis going on? You know, how bad did it get?
Only a little bit. There was like 2 or 3 different times where I'd stayed up for more than 2 nights in a row. Like I'd been up for like my 3rd night, but that was usually it. I've never been up for more than, no, actually I take that back. 5 nights in a row was the longest I'd ever been awake. And that was one of the 2 or 3 times that I saw like shadow people, what they refer to as shadow people.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
Like not necessarily a full on hallucination, but like a shadow that's like distorted that looks like a person.
Did it
or
scare you?
Something. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One of them looked like a death, like the figure of death.
Right.
You know, and I was like going to sleep after I'd been up for like 3 nights.
Yeah.
And I was going to sleep finally, and this death was watching me, and I like was staring at it for a long time, and I would close my eyes and like open them a few minutes later, and it was still there, and then I started talking to it, and then another one showed up that was different looking, but it was taller, and it was...
Is it possible that
strange.
not only amphetamine psychosis was going on, but knowing what we know about even the word drugs, pharmakia, which means witchcraft, right?
Yeah.
That there may have been a spiritual element associated with this as well?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, there is an unseen world.
Sure.
You know, that's what the Bible says, right?
Yeah.
There is an unseen world. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that...
I saw it after about 14 days.
Did you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, and then you mix that with, you know, the hallucinogenic properties of, you know, lack of sleep. I mean, just a person that doesn't sleep for a week without any substances is going to start, you know, having issues. So, did you have run-ins with the law?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I got arrested like in total something like 17 times.
17 times,
something like that. There weren't new charges every time. I got a felony when I was 18. 5 days after I turned 18, I blacked out drunk and broke into the Swiss Village, which is a little mom and pop restaurant. I don't even remember doing it. You know, there's like 3 flashes of memory of like 2 seconds long of me walking up to the glass door and then punching the glass door and then stepping under, and then it cuts out, and then I'm like, the next time it cuts back in is I'm smashing the register, and then it cuts out, and the next time it cuts back in, I'm going to sleep under a tree, like I guess a mile down the road, and then it cuts out, and then I'm waking up in the back of a cop car with handcuffs, and then it cuts out, and then it's 4 p.m, and I'm in jail and don't know where I am. What
would you consider the highest cost you paid in your active addiction?
The highest cost that I paid would probably be my the ties and moments with my family that I missed and broke, that I've had to do my best at rebuilding.
Yeah.
You know?
So we're going to talk about that whole thing, the restoration and the rebuilding, and how you got into recovery and how you got into Adult and Teen Challenge and that kind of thing. But first I want to play this song by Mr. Richie Supa that really speaks to the high cost of low living. And, you know, consequently, no, that's not the word I'm looking for. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for. Coincidentally, that's the one. Coincidentally enough, this song is entitled The High Cost of Low Living by Richie Supa. So check this out. You ready? Here we go.
Here's another deal again. Another reputation ended. Another youth that's been misled. And he lived so hard and he died so fast. A disciple of the street. Yeah, he put his faith in the dealer's hands until finally he got beat. It's the high cost, low living. The high cost of low living. The high cost of low living. Now getting high is a wicked game, and it's waiting to take you down. When you're all strung out on a cocaine run, on the dead end side of town, and you just can't quit and walk away, 'cause the dope just takes your will. What keeps you coming back again is the hole that you can't fill. It's the high cost, low living. The high cost of low living. High cost, high cost, low living.
In my arm, I'm still missing the point of life. Doing so much wrong just so I can get right. A lie that I don't believe in, wonder who can I trust. Disgust every time I do it, still I can't get enough. The drugs rushing through my veins got me going insane, and end up giving me more pain than they're taking away. Somebody take me away before I'm dying on a bullet. Got my finger on the trigger, but I'm too scared to pull it in. So I'm doing things that I swore that I'd never do. Sell the kids cause they mamas is using too. There's no denying everything that I speak is true. In any city you can find me cause I am you. Hot pack, took a shot and then I dropped. Woke up, drove back to the block to cop. Locked me up in prison in a single man cell. It's still me that holds the key that keeps me living in hell.
When you cross the line and you can't get back, there's always a price to pay. I've been licking my wounds and healing my scars from all my yesterdays. And when the costs go on and you land in jail, counting bricks across the floor. Sorry, just don't cut it, no. When they slam and bar the door, oh, it's the high cost, low living. The high cost of low living. The high cost of low living. Low living. Oh, it's the high cost of low living. The high low living. It's the high cost. Low, 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 low.
Mr. Richie Supa with his song, The High Cost of Low Living. Easy, can you identify?
Yeah, that song's jamming, man.
I know, that's a great song, isn't it? Was there a point where, like in the song, he talks about, you know, not knowing if he's going to make it back? Was there a point where you thought, I'm not going to make it back?
Oh, there was no back for me. It was only I started using it when I was so young that I didn't know anything better.
So this was, as far as you were concerned, you were just going to keep going to the bitter end.
Oh yeah, I had no vision for the future because I honestly didn't think I had one.
Right.
You know, I didn't think I was going to be alive for too many years if I continued down the road that I was on.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that, but I couldn't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened, man? I mean, something interrupted this.
Well, there's a short answer. I could say that, you know, there was a divine appointment that happened in my life.
Yeah.
You know,
give us the details.
Okay. So there's this, a pastor, Gary Hinkey, that is connected with Adult and Teen Challenge in some ways. And
hi, Pastor Hinkey, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, Gary.
He's listening. So yeah.
He ended up actually getting in touch with my dad. My dad does web development. He needed a web.
Now, were you in California at this time?
No, I was back in Oregon.
You're back in Oregon.
This time.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're still using.
I had started using again. Hadn't when I moved back down to California in 2013. I actually had stopped using. I had stopped all the way up until the end, until summer of 2017. So I had stopped for 4 years, and I had started using again. And so my dad builds web pages. Gary Hinkey needed a web page. They ended up becoming talking more than just about business.
Right.
My dad was informed about Teen Challenge and came to do some research about it and discovered that he really liked what he had found out about it. And so he ended up telling me and told me, you know, basically gave me an ultimatum, you know, said, you know, I love you, but I can't watch you do this again. You know? So he said, I'll pay for the intake fee and I'll send you there. But if you don't complete that program, you're not coming back here. So I don't know what you're going to do. So, you know, and so I was like, okay, you know, cause at that point I didn't have the fortitude to be homeless again. You know, I just didn't. I knew that, you know, so I was like, okay, you know, I'll go into this program, you know, whatever it is. Let's.
Did Pastor Gary introduce Teen Challenge to your dad? Is that how your dad found out about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up talking to Gary 2 or 3 times before actually going into the program, telling him, you know, basically I was messed up and I didn't, you know, and I wanted to stop, but I couldn't, you know, I didn't know how. And, you know, so he like spoke some life into me. And
did you wonder, before you met him, did you wonder how your story would be perceived? Did you expect like hammer down kind of stuff? And what did you find instead?
How my story would be perceived?
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking to him, I mean, I know the first time that I was suggested to talk to somebody, I had a whole lot of mixed feelings going on. I don't know if I want to talk to this person. I don't know how, you know, I'm kind of a loser. And I mean, what did you think? What was going through your head?
Yeah, well, he was a pastor and he just has this way about him that makes you real comfortable with the guy right away. You know, so I didn't feel like that. Not with him.
Good deal.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was, and I hadn't met him face to face at this point. I had only talked to him on the phone.
Right.
But even still, I was like, I didn't have any problem opening up to the guy, you know? So I went into the program. I went into Teen Challenge March 15th of 2018. I went to the Adult and Teen Challenge program in Shed, Oregon, here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yay!
And I ended up...
And that's Shed with 2 Ds.
Yeah, with
Shed
2
with
Ds.
2 Ds, yes.
Right, yes.
Meh.
Yeah, there's more sheep there than people. So
yeah,
it was actually the perfect setting for a recovery center, you know, because there's nothing around. There's just fields of grass seed being grown. It's the grass seed capital.
Sure.
You know, so there's just fields, and then there's a sheep field across the street, and it's not a busy street.
So there's no big city distractions.
There's no
none of that
distractions.
stuff. Yeah.
There's no buses, so you can't leave, you know, and I mean, if you leave, you're hiking. You know? You're not just, it's not just a walk. I mean, you're going for a hike if you walk out.
I think
of
it's
there
like
and you don't have a ride.
17 miles into Albany.
Something like that. Yeah. It's not, yeah, it's a hike. So perfect setting, you know. So I go into this program and it took me about a month before I really decided to commit myself in going through this program, you know, and It was right about that time where I decided to go through this program and commit myself. When I actually met Dave, and he told me that
this Dave right here,
yeah, and he told me that,
hi Dave,
that if that I'm sure I've heard it, you're going to get what out of this program what you put into it, but the thing is he felt the same way that I did at the beginning of my recovery, that if he was going to go through these steps, he was going to do them to the best of his ability, and if nothing changes, then he would just go back to using it. And I was like, yep, that's exactly how I feel. I'm going to go through these steps, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and if nothing changes, then oh well, then nothing changes, then I'm resigned to my fate.
Sure.
And that the funny thing is that I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and
just
so yeah, just a bit, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm a perfectionist, and so I decided to actually apply myself,
right?
And go through the 12 steps, and do whatever I needed to do to actually bring about a change in my life. And it wasn't me bringing about the change. I was putting in the work to facilitate the change, but it was God coming into my life and making the change actually real and tangible.
Had you had any kind of relationship with God at all prior to this?
No, I had head knowledge of God.
Okay.
Now, I wasn't ignorant of the Bible or even some scriptures, but I had no relationship with him whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Is that what that began developing while at Adult and Teen Challenge?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was, it was like April 10th or 11th, somewhere in there, and I was reading my Bible during the morning devotions times, because I was actually one of the guys during that morning devotion time that sat there and read my Bible like was suggested to do, because
Unlike some.
Yes, we'll just say some.
Everybody's on their own personal journey.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But I was at the point where I wanted to take suggestions because my way of thinking wasn't working. So you guys give me some clues as to what to do. I'll actually do them because I want things to actually change. And so I came across this verse, Jude 10. It said, "But these people scoff at things they do not understand. Like unthinking animals, they do whatever their instincts tell them, and so they bring about their own destruction." And I still am. I'm convinced that the Holy Spirit had led me to read that verse in that moment, in that time of my life, to realize that that's how I had been living my life for so long. I was an unthinking animal. I was completely driven by my lusts and my desires and my appetites, and not by anything else.
Yeah.
It was the only, so like an unthinking animal, and I was bringing about my own destruction. And so I was led there. And so April 19th, Pastor Gary came, and it was the first time I met him face to face. He gave one of his world-class sermons, and he did an altar call. And I actually didn't stand up right away. I was like mulling it over in my head, and then before I knew it, I was standing up. And I was like, oh, well, all right. And so April 19th, I asked Jesus Christ into my heart to be my Lord and Savior, and to help me, and to please God help me, because I can't help myself, and everything started changing at that point. I wasn't sure if I was sincere when I asked him into my heart, but Gary told me I was, with his reassuring smile that he has.
Yeah.
And things started changing at that point. I had a different outlook and different perception on things, and I realized that my attitude is going to affect whatever I'm doing.
Right.
Not just if it's something, that not just a job or hanging out with someone, having a good times or something fun, but my attitude is going to affect every part of my life. And so since I have a good work ethic when I'm an alcoholic, I decided to apply that same gift, into the other areas of my life, specifically the recovery area of my life. So when I got to doing step 4, I had written out my own 3rd step prayer, right? Which I had said almost every morning for months while I was at Teen Challenge, months.
And for the listeners' sake that may not know, right, step 1 is what?
we admitted to ourselves, to God, and we admitted that we
were powerless
over drugs and alcohol, and that our lives had become unmanageable.
And step 2 is
decided to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand.
That's actually step 3. Step 2 is we recognize that a power greater than
right,
ourselves,
right.
Can restore us to sanity.
So
you actually did a third step prayer that you wrote out, right? That was that involved turning your will and your life over to the care of God. Yes. As you understood him, and as you understood him and continued to understand him.
Yeah, it's an active. It's not just as I understand him and put him in this box.
Has he, she, it, or them. It's
right. It's a continuance understanding of
right.
God, and which is
I think at that point you had more questions than you had answers.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was great because I got to be a part of that, of you exploring that whole thing. And we spent a lot of time pretty much after that, you would turn your life over. And I think after that, we spent, it seemed like at least 2 days a week for at least an hour, if not longer.
Yeah, it was about that. I would say that's about right. Yeah, because I was the cook. I ran the kitchen most of the time at the beginning of my program, so I was at the center all the time.
Right.
Right. So we had lots of time.
How many pages was your 4th step?
35 whole pages.
Now that's a thorough 4th step.
Right. I ask knowing the answers to these things because I think it's important for our listeners to understand what the possibilities are when you make the commitment to to kind of turn yourself and your life over to this process of recovery. Everyone's is a little differently, but I've only seen this probably 2 handfuls of times in the last 10 years of people that actually give themselves completely to the process of this process, right?
Sure.
And be willing to I think this is what happens is as they say, the scales fall off your eyes. You come to this new awareness, I think, for some people that really turn, their wholeheartedly turn their lives over to the care of God. You may not know entirely what that looks like, at that time, but just the willingness to do that, I think, makes all the difference. Because anybody can just say the words and go through the motions. But I know Ezekiel, he actually, he's the real deal. I mean, he'd write notes and do journaling, and he'd be like, yeah, man, remember we were talking about this, and like the next day, all of a sudden this pops up in scriptures, and then this person says this, and it like ties it all together. And that happened for him, like all the time.
It still does.
He would just be like, man, I'm just,
So in step
12,
12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, doesn't just start to happen at step 12. It's as a result of 1, 2, 3. You were having spiritual awakenings from the very beginning.
Yep.
Right. God led you into this recovery ministry, and then like you said, Dave, the scale starts to fall off, and you're having these realizations. What was one of the most challenging experiences you ever had while in residential treatment at Adult and Teen Challenge?
One of the most challenging things, so one of the most challenging, there's always sandpaper people, right? People that rub you the wrong way. So I'm not gonna go there because everybody's got that.
But the iron sharpens iron is very real.
It's very real.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself. That is real.
Yeah.
Okay. But one of the biggest challenges for me actually was learning when not to speak. I'm pretty outgoing. I'm not afraid to speak my mind and just talk to random strangers. I'm also not afraid to correct somebody, even when it's not my place to do so. So that was one of the biggest challenges for me when I was in residential treatment was it's not my place. I'm not going to say anything. You know? And Dave knows that from working with me. Like, that's one of the things I would have to tell myself. Like, it's not my place. People are different. You know,
right? There's lots of those conversations too. Like, how do I deal with this? Like,
because you're supposed to hold each other accountable, but then you have to use wisdom when that's appropriate and when it's not.
Right, exactly.
And that's difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially at the beginning of phase of my recovery journey, that wasn't. I was not able to discern when it was a tactful time for me to do that.
What does it mean to hold someone else accountable?
Yeah, exactly. I just had no idea. I'm like, just tell them not to do something, right? No, that's not right. So
stop telling me what to do.
Yes, don't touch my stuff.
How did you deal? So one of the things that happens when we go into a residential a program, whether it's secular or faith-based, either way, you are now putting yourself under the authority of people in your life. And though you've been told what to do all your life by different things like stop signs, right?
Right, yeah.
Right? We don't look at it that way, but when we're in a controlled environment, all of a sudden it becomes very real to us that other people are pulling the levers and pushing the buttons, and we can't be because we don't know how to, and we have to fall under this authority. Was that hard for you to kind of put your own ego aside and do what you are instructed and guided to do?
Actually, it wasn't, because when I decided to commit to this process of recovery and of being there at the Teen Challenge program, I decided to commit to all of it. So
you were ready.
It wasn't. It wasn't hard for me.
We had some conversations about, we all go through these experiences in life where we deal with people that have authority over us, that we feel probably don't make the best decisions or probably shouldn't be in that position.
Sure.
But I think, like I had to do, or like I chose to do, and Ezekiel chose to do, it's like, okay, it's not, I'm supposed to learn how to do this in order to be better. And like he said, at a certain point, he just submitted himself. And I just want to say, and I don't know if you're just maybe don't want to share it or forgot about this, but the other thing that I think was super difficult for you would be
not putting away the coffee mugs,
doing his fifth step.
Is that
I think
rough?
he put it off like
I remember when you came
6 times.
You came
I put it
to
off
me
3 times, but it ended up being like 4 weeks.
I remember when you came to me after you had done it, right? And you were very, very excited about it.
Yeah,
because that was a milestone.
Because it was harder for me to actually go through the 5th step than it was to go through the 4th step.
Admitted to God, myself, and another human being the exact nature of my wrongs is the 5th step. And why was that so hard?
Because there's some ugly stuff on there, man.
Yeah,
that I did not want to have to look at,
indeed.
Let alone share with somebody else. I was pretty much okay with it, writing it out, and then reading it aloud and sharing it with God. But then when it came to actually reading it aloud to another person, there got to be times in my 5th step that, I'm sure Dave remembers, that I kind of took a breath and my tone of voice changed a little bit, and
muscles tightened up.
Muscles tightened. But I read through it, and I did it, and it's just a process that has to happen. It's a cleansing. It's a spiritual cleansing. A soul washing, if you will, that has to take place.
Yeah.
So I mean, can you? And as I try to like explain this to people, and it's hard to explain it. Can you speak about like what that was like to actually struggle? I mean, you talked about it just now, but like what it was a little bit of a struggle to actually do it. But like, how did it feel afterwards? Because I try to put it across, and it's hard to really put it into words unless you've done it. I've done it. You've done it now, and there's others that know what I'm talking about. But can you share a little bit about what that, what that felt like to actually do it? Was it better or worse than you thought it was going to be, or?
Well, afterwards, when I completed it, I did feel like I didn't have to hold on to these things anymore, But the biggest one was that I didn't have to hate myself anymore. You know, going through that and looking, you know, actually formulating sentences about what I'd done, you know, so admitting the exact nature of my wrongs, right? And then articulating that to somebody else. It's like releasing it, you know, I don't need to hold on to these things anymore. And it was one of the biggest parts of releasing the shame, you know, and guilt that was part of my life for so long. You know, that was one of the big things, is letting go of that. And then just realizing that it's not the end of the world, you know, and that, you know, this guy obviously he's not running away from me. You know, he actually, at the end of it, he told me, because I did my 5th step with Dave here. He told me that, you know, the first words out of his mouth was, well, I would say that was a thorough 4th step, a thorough and fearless search and moral inventory. That's what he said. He said, right. That's what I would say.
Because there is that fear, right, that if you knew these things about me, you would run away. And then that speaks to maybe some of our abandonment issues, and we're scared to death that one more time someone is going to walk out of our life.
It's not necessarily that somebody's going to walk out of my life, because I don't think I really have abandonment issues. It's just that it's like that fear that once you know all of the bad things about me or that I've done, you're going to treat me differently.
Right. Okay. You know? Yeah.
And
that can be heavy.
And that can be heavy, you know, and that's why there's still guards up and stuff, you know, with certain people. I'm not going to tell you this about me.
Well, you got to use wisdom who you disclose.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly.
Right. So, let's talk a little bit about, 'cause we're getting ready to run out of time here, but I want to talk a little bit about the amends process. In the 9th step, it talks about making amends to these people and these are the people that we put on our 4th step, that we have harmed, and that we're willing to make amends to these folks, right? What has that been like for you? Because you have really been working hard, even as of late, to complete the amends process of some damage that was created in your active addiction.
Oh yeah, a lot of it.
Right.
So okay, so the amends process actually is a giant.
And let me pause you. I'm sorry, but I have to say this. This continues even though you've graduated from residential program.
Oh yeah,
Adult
absolutely.
Teen Challenge.
Adult and Teen Challenge just gave me the tools and, you know, the foundation of my recovery. So, you know, and they like held my hand through the beginning stages of my recovery. But
there you go.
Graduating the program, you know, they're like, okay, you've completed, so we're entrusting your recovery to you. So now it's your job because it's your recovery. You know, and so my recovery continues, and I just now know how to go about it because of what I learned there.
Sure. So go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I wanted to say that. Yeah.
Anyways, the 9th step, making the amends, made direct amends to people wherever possible, except when to do so injure others, them or others, right? Whenever possible, is a better way. So it's like a giant feast of humble pie, basically, you know, because you got to go direct face to face with the person. You have to do it face to face, or at least I did. I have to do it face to face because then someone can see that I'm sincere, you know, in my apologies, you know, and I don't just go and apologize to the person.
You make amends.
I mean, 95% of my amends, I think there was 2 that weren't there wasn't a monetary amount that I could bring to the amends process, you know? And so it's not just about saying I'm sorry and I apologize and I'm really sincere and I'm really sorry. I don't even ask for forgiveness. I just tell them that I used to be really messed up. And, you know, depending on who it is, I explain what they mean to me and what they've done for me, and that I recognize that, and I tell them exactly what I've done, and I apologize for that. And I don't mention anything about forgiveness on their part or my part, because I'm not there for that. I'm there to just make right the wrongs that I've done. And
gotcha.
So but I also bring with me whichever amount of money or whatever it was to make it right. It's not, words aren't good enough, you know, at least for me, it's not good enough. There has to be, you know, something to go along with those words. So they know that I'm being sincere, that I genuinely am trying to right the wrongs of my past, you know? And so I've done that. I've gone through, my amends list was about a whole page long. And each amends I squeezed onto one line. So there's like, it's a lot of lines.
Has it been received well?
Every one of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
To your
was
surprise,
received
even?
well. One of them was really surprising. The other ones were kind of not expected, but just, I figured, it'd be all right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But one was surprising that they accepted it well.
They accepted it better than anybody else, and that was the one that I thought was going to be the hardest to go and do.
Yeah,
and this lady just her capacity for forgiveness is beyond anything I can even think of. Because I had told her that I needed to talk to her, and we had put it off for a couple of weeks, and then I finally came around to getting to talk to her, and I was going to give her like $600 or something. That was about the amount that I figured that should cover everything, and maybe a little extra, but that the little extra would cover anything I'm forgetting about, right? And so. She comes in, the first thing she says to me and gives me a big old hug and says, "Hi, honey." And I'm like,
wow,
gosh, really? Like, this is going to be.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm like, wow, this is going to not be hard at all. I ended up talking to her for like an hour, and it was great. And now I actually see her from time to time. And she's my friend's mom. They're my family that took me in when I got kicked out when I first started using when I was 18.
Yeah.
So they're actually. They live around the block from us,
right.
So they're kind of back in my life every once in a while now, which is really cool because I never thought that relationship would be restored, and here it is,
right,
restored,
right.
So it's weird,
right. So let's move, as we close this out. Let's move into what it's like now. Okay, so we had what it was like, what happened, and that was your recovery journey, how it started, what it's like now, without being specific about the 12-step fellowship that you attend, just to keep the traditions police at bay. Okay.
Right.
What are you doing now to not only maintain, but to continue growing in your recovery and in your relationship with God?
Following the directions. I have morning meditation and prayer time. I go to a 12-step meeting, which is actually my home group. I go to two. And I've also and the other thing is I take people's advice now, take someone's suggestions. If I trust that person and I know they're just trying to help me, like Dave suggested when I get out of the program, when you go to 12-step meetime maybe try different ones every once in a while to keep you interested, and so I do that, I bounce around to different meetings from time to time, but I have a home group, I have a sponsor.
There you go. Yeah.
I do 10th steps. I don't usually write them down, but at the end of the day, I do a mental 10th step. It's usually in conjunction with my evening prayer time.
Which is your continuing of your inventory process, right?
Yeah, continuing of your inventory process. Sure. And then, 11th step, right? It's improving my conscious contact with God, and I do that with prayer and meditation, and reading my Bible, actually opening it up and reading it. And I find that in the morning time works best for me to do that. That way I'm starting my day off thinking about God, and I do whatever I can to make sure what goes into my body be positive and healthy. Like I 98% of the time listen to Christian music, and there's all genres of Christian music now. I listen to Christian rap and hard rock and all sorts of different things now. It's not all
there's as soft
piano and guitar.
There's as soft as a down pillow, and there's as metal as iron, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Everything in between.
Yeah,
right, Dave?
Yeah, exactly. What makes the difference is the lyrics, and so what are you going to listen to is what's going in my body, and so I guard myself on those things, because the Bible says guard your heart above all else, for everything you do proceeds from it. Right. Yeah. And so I do that, and I remember that I'm still a work in progress, you know? And so I live by a certain favorite scripture that I actually got from Monty, giving me assignment in the program. Came from 1 Chronicles 20, the verses 1 Chronicles 28:20. Be strong and courageous and get to work. Don't be frightened by the size of the task, for the Lord my God is with you. He will not forsake you. He will see to it that everything is finished correctly. And I believe that, man. And I do that. I do that. I'm like, I believe you, God. You are going to make sure things are finished correctly. But that means finished correctly. So I'm going to be strong and courageous, and I'm going to get to work, man. And I'm going to do the work, because that's what it takes. That's what life is, man. Life is, you know, growth is challenge, you know?
Yeah.
And so if I'm growing, then I'm continuing to challenge myself. So that's what I do.
So in closing, before we listen to the closing song, what would you like to say if these were the last words that you had to speak as a living, breathing young man to the listeners? What would you say to them? Not to put you on the spot.
Put your trust in the light while there is still time. Then you will become children of the light. Wow.
Yeah. My friend, you know how I feel about you. You know, we run into a lot of people in our lives, you know, and some become very positive acquaintances, some not so positive sometimes, and we learn from that. Others become close friends. Others become brothers, friends, confidants, and I think the world of you. And I've got the utmost respect for you, because you have been through the ringer, and you've come out the other end, and you continue to walk it out. And there it is there, continuing in it. And I'm just so stinking proud of you, man. I am. Thanks for being my friend.
Call them the brother from another mother.
Right back at you guys. Love you guys too, man.
This has been a really good show. And listen, I want to encourage you to download this show, play it for maybe you've got loved ones who they don't think there's hope. Maybe they don't think there is a solution to the predicament that they're in. If you're sucking air, there's still hope, right, Easy?
That's right.
Right, Dave?
Don't give up.
Don't give up. You've heard Easy's story. We called it Easy Does It. It hasn't always been easy, but Easy did do it.
Nope.
And he continues to do it as well. So we're going to close out this song with this song from Richie Supa. It is called In the Rooms. It's one of his most popular ones, one of his original ones, when he started recording recovery-based music.
Hey, where can you get this music at?
You can get this music at well, I say it right at the end of the song, but I'll say it right now. Recovery Unplugged.
I'm just pretending I'm the listener,
Yeah.
because I know that's
I always
tell us, Monty. Tell us.
I always say at the end of a song where you can get it. RecoveryUnplugged.com. You can find out all sorts of stuff about Richie Supa, and Recovery Unplugged, which is all music-based tools for recovery, and all of his music is there as well. You can get his whole album there as well. So CD Baby. Also, you can go there and type in Richie Supa. This song is about the rooms of recovery. Specifically, what Easy is doing now in the 12-step rooms of recovery, being a maximum service to God and the people he puts in his life. And that is the real reason we get clean and sober. It's not for abstinence. It's to be a maximum service. Right, Easy?
That's right.
All right, so here is Mr. Richie Supa with his song, In the Rooms.
In my younger years, I let my spirit run. Getting high, drinking all the time just for fun. And I don't know where or when I crossed that line, and I started dying. was so far gone, I couldn't find myself. On the borders of insane is where I screamed for help. Then I found the door that opened up my eyes, and I came alive. In the rooms where broken angels go, and love is like an army that comes to save your soul. In the rooms, there's a miracle waiting there for you. When you're at the bitter end, you can learn to live again in the rooms. And God was something I didn't understand, till a stranger came and took me by the hand. And he helped me through what I couldn't do alone, and I knew I was wrong. In the rooms where broken angels go, and love is like an army that comes to save your soul. In the rooms, there's a miracle just waiting there for you. When you're at the bitter end, you can learn to live again in the room. When you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and the desperation cuts you like a knife, you can let it go once you face the truth inside you. Start getting high on life. In the rooms where broken angels go, and love is like an army that comes to save your soul. In the rooms, there's a miracle just waiting there for you. If faith is what you need, we all come to believe in the rooms. Oh, in the rooms.
Mr. Richie Supa with his song In the Rooms. To check out more of his music and the amazing work that he is doing in the recovery community, visit recoveryunplugged.com. Hey, listen, a very special thank you to the Ministry of Adult and Teen Challenge, which has been a huge part of our guest's recovery and his restoration back to health and becoming a productive member of society, serving God and the people that God puts in his life, Mr. Ezekiel Hill. Listen, if you want to find an Adult and Teen Challenge Center near you, simply visit teenchallengeusa.com, click on the resources link, and then click on the Center Finder link. There are literally hundreds of centers in the United States and around the globe. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.